Hello everyone, welcome back to my video lecture series on microcontrollers and embedded systems. Today I'm gonna explain about a hardware software co-design and program modeling. So basically we will see a co-design fundamental issues and then few of the program modelings. After going through these sections, the students will be able to demonstrate on fundamental issues in model architecture, a selection of hardware software co-design and partitioning, system requirements in hardware and software. And also they are able to demonstrate on different computational models used in embedded system design. First, we'll move on to a fundamental issues in hardware and software code design. So basically, in the hardware and software partitioning is done in early stage of in the early stage, and then engineers from the hardware and software groups are made to carry out these design and development processes separately. So there was a least interaction between the software engineers and hardware engineers during a design of a system. Then once the design was ready and the integration is performed. So here, as there was a very less interaction between these two groups, software and hardware groups, there may be a chances of the system failure. Then the increased competition and reduced time to market tend to a new approach, and that approach is called as the hardware software co-design. So by aiming to solve hardware software co-design in a real life, we may come across some multiple issues in the designs, like they are selecting the model. So this is one issue, that there are many number of models, and which one has to be chosen to develop a system. So selecting the model in the hardware software co-design, the models are used to capture and describe a system characteristics. So whatever the requirements are that are going to be captured through these models. A model consists of an objects and composition rules. Which model is followed for a design? So in a in a variety of models, from specifications to implementation, which model is going to be used? So we will see some of the models in further slides. Then selecting the architecture. As we know, there are so many classes of architectures, like a general purpose architectures, a specific purpose architectures, or a parallel processing architectures. So many architectures are there. So which one is to be chosen to implement a system? The architecture always specifies how the system is going to be implemented with different components and interconnection with them. So some of the architectures used in a system designs are, like we said, application specific class, where a controller architecture and data path architecture falls down, like a microcontroller or any DSP that we can go for an application specific. A general class is having a CISC architecture or a RISC architectures. Then a parallel processing class is having a very long instruction word computing, that is VLIW, or a single instruction multiple data, or multiple instruction multiple data, MIMD. So if you go for a controller architecture that implements a finite state machine model, so that is using a register and a two combinational circuits. Then if you go for a data path architecture that implements a data flow graph model where output is generated as a result of a set of predefined computation on the input data. So like a finite state machine data path, FSMD, this architecture combines a controller architecture with a data path architecture. The controller generates controlled input, whereas data path process the data. Likewise, each architecture, if you go for a RISC, if you go for a CISC, or many things, if you go for VLIW, single instruction multiple data, or multiple instruction multiple data, each architecture is going to implement some of the models and require a different components according to their implementation. Then the challenge falls to which one is best to choose. Then another issue is selecting the language. So a programming language captures a computational model and maps it into an architecture. So there are multiple programming languages are there, like C, C++, C Sharp, Java, etc. for software implementation, and VHDL, System C, Verilog, basically all these things we are having for hardware implementation. So the challenge is which language can implement the design easily. Then another fundamental issue of hardware software co-design is partitioning system requirement into a hardware and software. On what base they are going to be partitioned? So it may be possible to implement the system either in a hardware or in a software, but it is tough decision to figure out which one is to be selected. Various hardware and software trade-offs are used for making decisions on hardware and software partitioning. After this, we will see some of the models which are going to implement which are going to specify the characteristics of an embedded system and implement the design. A computational models in an embedded system. So some of them are, the first one is a data flow graph, DFG, or a data flow diagram. So this is one model that translates the data processing requirements into a data flow graph. I repeat, a data processing requirements into a data flow graph, or a single sequential process execution. So it is a data driven model. So if a model is having a data, and those data is going to be processed. So it transforms input data into output by computing the operations given by the user. It is a visual mode that implements a data as well as a variable, data as a variable, operation as a block. A circle is represented by an operation, variables by variable names, and a data flow as a arrows. An inward arrow represents input to a block, and outward arrow denotes output data, as shown in the figure. In the downside in the figure we can see that. So here a figure which implements x is equal to, x is the output, x is equal to a plus b, a and b are variables, addition plus is an operation, y is equal to x minus c. So here in the figure we can see that a and b are two variables. They are they are given to a plus operation process through some of inward arrows, and then the output of that plus is going to be x, where x and c variables are given to minus. So y is equal to x minus c. So basically DSP applications DSP applications are typical examples for data driven model. There are two types in this DFG. One is acyclic DFG and another one is non-cyclic DFG, where acyclic DFG has no multiple values, or it doesn't have any feedback, as well as it doesn't have any events. A simple data is going to flow from input to output with some of the operations without having any feedback or events. A non-cyclic DFG system which is having a feedbacks as well as events, etc. A control, then we'll go for another model, control data flow graph or control data flow diagram, CDFG. Basically that in the previous we have seen a DFG, data flow graph, where it does not contain any control operations or a conditions. So here a CDFG involves conditional program execution. So condition block is going to be added with this DFG, CDFG. CDFG contains both a data flow nodes as well as a decision nodes. So for an example, in the below figure, the algorithm is being implemented like if flag is equal to 1, x is equal to a plus b, or else y is equal to a minus b. So in the figure we can see that first a control node is there for decision making. The decision is whether flag is equal to 1 or not. So if it is equal to 1, then if it is true, then the value a and b variables are going to be added up. And then if it is false, then the same a and b variables are going to be made subtract. At the end, the result will be either x or y. So a real world example is a digital still camera which captures and stores an image to a format set by users. So different formats like a JPG or PNG or different formats. So here in this camera, a CCD sensor will be there, which is going to generate an analog data. That analog data is being converted into digital by another embedded system called ADC, analog to digital converter. Then the data is stored for a media processor which performs operations like auto correction, balance adjusting, or etc. Then we will go for a state machine models. So here this is a reactive or event driven model or embedded system whose processing behavior are dependent on the state transitions. So basically this state machine model is represented as 4 parts. It is having a states, events, actions, and transitions. So state is a representation of a current situation of the operation or position of the operation. Event is a representation of input to the state, or it is a stimuli for the state to transition. The action is representation of activity to be performed by the state machine, and the transition is a movement from one state to another state. So a finite state machine model, FSM, finite state machine model, is one in which a number of states are finite. So as an example, let's take an embedded system for a driver seat belt warning in an automotive. So if a driver is not wearing a seat belt, then there should be an alarm. And this system is built up with the requirements for this system is when vehicle ignition is turned on and the seat belt is not fastened within 10 seconds of ignition on, the system generates an alarm signal for 5 seconds. The second requirement is the alarm turned off after 5 seconds, or if driver fastens the seat belt, or if the ignition switch is turned off, whichever happens first. So in the figure we can see that the requirement, these two conditions are implemented in a model, in a finite state machine model, where it consists of states, events, actions and transitions. So here we can decide that the states are there are three states. One is alarm off. In the block, in the circle, we can see that it is been written alarm off. States are represented by the circles: alarm off, waiting and alarm on. These are three states of the embedded system. Then the events are nothing but they are a stimuli, or they are the input to the these states. That is, through arrow mark we are by writing we are denoting the events. So they are ignition key on, ignition key off, waiting time expires, alarm time expires and seat belt on. So using FSM system that can be built as in the figure. So here what will happen is, when consider the embedded system is in the state of alarm off. Now the input to this alarm off state is ignition key is turned on. When the ignition key is turned on, then there is a transition from alarm off to waiting state. So why the embedded system is waiting? Because whenever ignition is turned on, it is waiting for a seat belt. It is waiting for 10 seconds. In that 10 seconds, it will check a seat belt is fastened or ignition key is off or not. If this 10 seconds are over, expires, then the transition will take it from the state waiting to the alarm on state. Then the alarm gets turned on. There are only two chances that if the alarm is on, there are two chances. One is, if the ignition key is turned off, it has to be turned off. The alarm should be turned off. Or if the seat belt is on, then also it should be turned off. Actually, there are three things. Another is, if the 5 second is over, then also it should be turned off. So for all these events, the transition is alarm off to alarm on to alarm off. In another example, which is going to implement the simple timer. So the wait state, in the previous slide we have seen that the wait state, which is waiting for a 10 seconds. The wait state is implemented with simple timer here. The timer has a certain sets of states, events for state transitions. So here three states are there: idle, ready and running. These are three states. So let us see how this is going to be built. Basically, the normal situation of a waiting state is a normal timer is not running. So it is in a idle state. Then from the idle state, it is transiting to the state ready state. So when it is going to be in the ready state is when the timer is loaded with the new count corresponding to the required delay. So the timer remains in the ready state until the start timer event occurs. So another event, if it occurs, that is a start time. Until then the embedded system stays in the ready state only after loading the timer count. Then a running state. So when receiving a start timer event, when a timer is been started, then the embedded system jumps from ready state into a running state, and the timer jumps from ready to running state and remains in a running state only until a timer count expires or a stop timer event occurs. So when this stop timer event occurs, then again it is jumping from running state into the idle state. So these are some two examples, and many more examples are there. You can just go through a coffee vending machine, an example 7.1 from the textbook Shibu KV Embedded Systems, and another example, a coin operated telephone system. So example 7.2, which are very much important in the view of exams. Next we will go for a sequential program model. So here the functions are executed in sequences. So here what will happen is the program instructions are iterated and executed conditionally, and data transformed through a series of operations. So in the right side figure we can see that there is a data flow chart. So basically the used methods are either FSM or flowcharts for this sequential program model. But whereas a flowchart represents the execution flow, that is why a sequential programming model selects a flowchart for describing the model. A flowchart for seatbelt warning system is shown in the figure. So the same seatbelt example that what we have seen in the previous slide, this flowchart is also going to explain the same thing. Like an ignition key is on, then go for a wait state where wait for 10 seconds. In that 10 seconds, if ignition is on, yes, don't alarm, just go to end. If no, if the seat belt is turned on, yes, then also go to end. If not, if the ignition is not turned off, or if the seat belt is not turned on, then set the timer for 5 seconds, set an alarm. During 5 seconds, again check for ignition and seat belt, and expiry of 5 seconds. Any one happens first, then go to stop alarm. Then from there and go to end. So this is the same example but represented in the flow chart. So where a functions are going to be executed in a sequential order. Then we will go for a concurrent or communicating processing model. So it is easier to implement certain requirements in concurrent processing model than the sequential. So what happens is in sequential programming that leads a poor processor utilization. How we can say that? That is, if the sequential programming is divided in, that is, what happens is when one task is executing in a sequential programming, like wait for 10 seconds, then what will happen? The processor has to wait until 10 seconds or any one of the event should be occurred. Until then the CPU is idle It is not executing any of other tasks. So a proper processor utilization is very much poor in the sequential programming. But if the sequential program is divided into a multiple subtasks, then it is possible to tackle a CPU effectively. How it can be done? So when any of the subtask goes into a sleep mode, then the processor can execute other subtasks by switching to it. So but what will happen is it adds some of the overheads in task scheduling or synchronizing of the task, and there is a task communication between multiple tasks. So that is one overhead which is added to the concurrent process model. Then the object oriented model. So this one is basically in the previous sections we all have seen that, or in some embedded or concept of a C++ language, we have seen the object oriented model. So it is an object based model for modeling system requirements. So it divides a complex software into a simple and well defined pieces, and those pieces are called as objects. So basically this brings out a reusability, maintainability and productivity in the system design, as each object is having a set of behavior and states. Then there is a concept called a class, which is an abstract of set of objects, and it defines a state of an object variable or a member variable or a member functions of that object. So these functions and variables, a member functions and a member variables, may be a private mode which is used only by the class, a protected mode which cannot be accessed by the external programs, or a public which can be accessible by anyone. So the whole concept of this model is, that is, object and class brings the abstraction of the model of the system, hiding of the system and protection to the system. An object oriented model is being shown up in the example slide, in the next slide. So here the program is divided into two things. The first task in the above figure A, the task for seat belt warning system, and in B it is a concurrent processing of program model for seat belt warning system. Both are implementing the same system, a seat belt warning system, but whereas in the first above A, we can see that a complete one program is there with a sequential execution. In the B, we can see that the same sequential program is being divided into multiple objects and classes, and these are executed according to their requirements as an object oriented model. So this is up to this section. We will go for newer sections in our next video lectures. Thank you.